Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tank12, and call me. I don't really care. Welcome back to World of Tanks, where we are today playing the Type 59. This is an old and legendary vehicle where I really wanted to have a little bit of a revisited story, and this is why I'm going to be playing 3 games in the Type 59. I'm just going to show them off in this clip. Now, the Type 59 was released about 10 years ago. I'm not entirely sure if it was 2012 or 13 when it came out. But this was the original tank that was incredibly powerful and everyone considered to be overpowered back when it was released. Nowadays, if we look at the Type 59, we don't see anything special there anymore. That's because power creep has really set into World of Tanks, and quite a few things have happened during that time. For example, the Bourrasque has been introduced into the game. Really dangerous tank with a lot of burst potential and also quite a bit of mobility. So what made the Type 59 so special when it was first released? Well, it's a really good all-rounder. It has a great gun, or back in the days, it had a great gun. It had really reliable armor for a medium tank, and its mobility was actually quite decent as well. Sadly, though, that is something that didn't happen as often, where you would get these bloody annoying, no damage critical hits. I'm not sure what has happened to World of Tanks, but I know that these critical hits, they are constantly getting worse. At least that's what I'm kind of thinking about when I play World of Tanks. I just realized that the crits are quite annoying. But yeah, you can see that the Type 59, it does combine quite a few things. It combines decent rate of fire, combines really good mobility nowadays as well. And it also has some decent armor, which will protect you from probably most incoming shells at tier 8 if you're in a hold down position. You can see, though, World of Tanks has changed quite drastically in the last 10 years. Games are incredibly one-sided, at least that's what I've realized. And, like, there is just no guarantee that you're gonna be able to hold on a single, like, side, and that your team is gonna be able to, you know, offer some form of resistance. But back to the Type 59. The Type 59 nowadays, in the year 2023, has been buffed at least 3 times. It has gotten its armor improved in the year 2015. It got its penetration. No, actually, penetration is still the same. It's still at 185 millimeters of penetration with the standard AP shell. It still has 50 millimeters of penetration on the high explosive shell. And we just got hit by a VK. There's a bloody VK hiding behind those bushes. That is insane. And yeah, the tank actually did get an improvement in... okay, that was a high explosive shell. It actually got an improvement in the mobility department. It's actually faster now. I think the top speed is at 60 kph instead of at the 56 kph that it was prior. And that's quite an impressive step up. So now with, you know, if you're using a mobility device, as I am currently running, with a turbo, this vehicle all of a sudden is able and capable of running 65 kph, which is pretty insane, if you ask me. But yeah, as you can see, we're still able to do quite a bit of damage, but that is because we are not getting shot at the moment. And as soon as we have to deal with a tank such as the VK, you do realize just how difficult it is to actually penetrate the armor unless you are right behind the vehicle, because 185 millimeters is not going to be good enough to go through the front and the front of the turret. But either way, the Type 59 nowadays, it does have some very nice features still. That is mainly the mobility, in my opinion. But it kind of lacks the penetration, the bite that it used to have. I remember the Type 59 with its 100mm gun that was quite a large caliber back then as well for a tier 8 medium tank. It was able to do quite a bit of damage, and you were able to do quite a bit of damage, especially when you had like a little bit of RNG luck on your side. So if we take a real quick look at the average damage, the 250 average damage that you have right there would sometimes allow you to get all the way up to 300 damage with a single shot. And that is actually quite an impressive step up from all of the damage that players were able to do back in the days with tier 8 vehicles, tier 8 medium tanks, which usually ended up at only being able to do like 240 damage with a single shot with the 90mm guns, and the Type 59 with just all of the characteristics added on top of each other made it a very lucrative vehicle, a really, really well-liked tank. Nowadays, we have the BZ-76. Where is that little bastard? Is it the 176? It should be the 176, right? The tier A premium one. There it is. The BZ-176. It has armor. It has like a incredible gun, and it has the mobility with the rocket pods as well. So once again, China is kind of leading the race to producing another broken tank, but 10 years down the line. But either way, nowadays the Type 59 is kind of average. It's able to do quite a bit of damage if you can still like flank tanks, and if you are able to, you know, get into positions early. You do have that great mobility that really does allow you quite a bit of a flexible way, or a lot of different ways to handle like different maps, because you have the mobility to get into place. But the 185mm of penetration just, it kind of feels like you're not really doing that much damage, and when you're hitting something, you are always worried that you don't have enough penetration to deal with it. That means you have to be a lot more knowledgeable of where you're shooting these tanks, because as you can see, if you hit like just one of those spots that is heavily armored, just like as on the Iron Army over there, you are in a pretty tough position where you're not going to be able to do a lot of damage. Now, one of the things that was also a bit problematic back in the days, but is like probably just it's a little bit of a luxury problem nowadays. Back in the days, I think it was just the way that the game was played. A lot of the tanks that you were able to play didn't have a lot of ammunition, especially the Chinese and the Russian vehicles that we all love and loved back then, maybe not so much anymore. For example, the T-44-100 and the T-54 prototype, they are two vehicles that are very well known for having like a very small load of ammunition that was actually fixed a few years later down the line. And that's just something that is really annoying nowadays, and it still is a part of the feature of the Type 59, because the Type 59 has more ammo. It carries more ammo than the T-54 and the T-44-100 used to carry back in the days, but it's still, well, suboptimal in my opinion, because as you can see right here, your rate of fire is quite high, your damage output, unfortunately, your DPM is decent, but your alpha damage is quite lacking, as we are trying to chase or shoot a batch at 58. Oh, there's a Kunze. And I think it's my time to actually get the hell out of this situation, because I'm not going to be sticking on this little hill while there are 4 tanks coming in to put some pressure on me. So I'm just going to sit here, and I'm going to hope that somebody will actually put some pressure on these guys. 7 degrees of gun depression was also something that you weren't hearing back in the days, especially for the Soviet tech trio or the Eastern Bloc. Nowadays, 70 degrees of gun depression is probably what you kind of expect. I wanted to pen him with a high explosive shell and took two shots of damage for that, which was really a bad decision by me, to be fair. And what I'm going to try to do right here is I actually haven't jumped down here, and I'm just going to be the annoying little nuisance tank that constantly pops back in to be annoying and, you know, to get some damage as well. But unfortunately for us, we're fighting against the KPZ-07, which is just one of those tanks that, you know, has a very high rate of fire, but doesn't have a lot of alpha, but can still be very dangerous to us. But having seen all of the downsides of the Type 59 and that you don't really have the armor anymore, or at least that the armor hasn't improved as much because everyone has just such large caliber guns and such high amounts of penetration, I think that you're still quite capable of playing with the Type 59 and being, you know, quite a decent supporter of your team when you try to play it in its intended role. And that is to be a medium tank that uses its mobility and its flexibility to get into positions where it can be a really annoying little tank that might not be able to pen everything, but that just might be able to do quite a bit of, you know, annoying damage every once in a while. And also take away the focus from vehicles that are trying to get to your position while you're already there by using your turret armor as effectively as you can. And I think that in that role, if the Type 59 also rolls with other medium tanks, it's still a very potent weapon and a very capable tank. It just doesn't have the bite, and it doesn't have that, you know, that legendary status it once has, or it once had. It still has this legacy, though, that all of us players will always remember, but it doesn't have that bite anymore that it once used to have, because the game has changed over the 10 years, and the meta has changed quite drastically. Now, the meta is really promoting tanks that are fast, so you at least have the mobility to do it, but also tanks that have some form of high alpha damage. For example, this Iron Army over there, which is basically the exact replacement for the T26E4, the Super Pershing, it has like 320 alpha damage, which is something you rarely saw in a tier 8 vehicle back in the days. That was only reserved for tier 8 heavy tanks that were running a 105mm gun. And I have to say, I think it's quite critical and it's quite dangerous of wargaming to constantly step up like the alpha damage on the vehicles. But it's like the one thing, the only thing that they can still do, because wargaming has just changed too many things too drastically in little time, that you now have like vehicles that will not sell very well, especially when, you know, players don't think that they're something special. Like, for example, this AMBT over here with a 105mm gun and I think 360 alpha damage, who just got into a position and we weren't able to penetrate. He's going to be a major pain in the ass for us because he has an autoloader as well. So he just misfired, and I actually have to tank some shots for this guy because I really... Oh no, I didn't want him to die. And sadly for us now, we're in a position where we can't win. What we're going to do right now is actually we're going to haul ass out of here, and we're going to try to still have a decent game. We might just get out of here with only a single shot from the 703 and the Panther 88, which is insane. Now, with the other tank, if you didn't have that mobility, you wouldn't have gotten away, but it seems to me that AMBT and it looks like the Iron Arnie over here actually saved our life because he put some pressure on the AMBT, and that allowed us to actually get out of harm's way there. The Panther 88, another one of those tanks that really doesn't fit into the game anymore, or it's just really underpowered, gets knocked out by another vehicle. But it just shows you that the Type 59 still has some tricks up its sleeve, and I think it mainly has to do with its mobility. If you can utilize that mobility as effectively as you can, and you keep an eye on where you can be like an effective little flanking vehicle, I think you're still going to have some decent games in the Type 59. But since the penetration is too slow, you will have to resort to premium ammunition, sadly, which is decent. 241mm of penetration that's obviously nothing in comparison to the American Iron Army with the whopping 300 millimeters of penetration, but it's still better than nothing, and it's still better than 185 millimeters of penetration. So at least I can actually utilize, you know, the penetration here to take care of this very annoying object 703 version 2, which still kind of frustrates me that he actually got into that position there. Didn't expect him to be able to get there. And we also put a shot into the charioteer. Like, this position here is so important. Like, fighting for this position, I think, allows you to have basically your hands in every single cookie drawer on the map. You can just basically be, like, everywhere at once, and you can be effective and do damage in every single direction. And that's why this position is, like, really, really fought author and like really important to take, because in my opinion it's just a strong position that if you lose it, well, you're going to have a really, really tough time taking it back. But for us, right there, that was a pretty good decision to run away and to reorganize ourselves with some other tanks over here. So let's put some high explosive shells into the Scorpion G, because we do actually have 8 rounds of high explosive, which we should probably put on over and switch to AP, because I think these high explosive rounds are actually not worth all that much, because we are not even able to penetrate the side of a Scorpion G. But either way, 3,000 damage, 3 wins, 3 very quick wins. And not once did the enemy team really have a chance to fight back. And I think, like, even in these fast games, where mobility is going to be quite important for you to get, like, the final damage in the round, I think the Type 59 is going to be really a nice asset to your plan. So I think Wargaming did a pretty decent job of updating the Type 59. I think the one thing that I would like to see is if they raised the average penetration on the vehicle. I think the rate of fire is actually quite decent. I think all the other characteristics are fine, but if they would raise the average penetration for the standard round to maybe 200 millimeters, maybe 205, I think that would already be a pretty big win for us players. The average damage, now 250 average damage for a single shot, that's probably something that a lot of players will dislike. But I personally think that I can live with that. I like the DPM that we have with the vehicle. But if they would up it, maybe 280, just like with the Panther 88, that would also be quite a nice feature. Panther 88, 3-mark that thing. Just got the mark for the Type 59 there, the first one. So yeah, that's going to be a marking story in the future, marking the Type 59 just because it's such a legendary tank, and I think I still want to do that in the future. So thank you guys for watching. This is the very first little episode of Revisited, where we are, you know, going back down memory lane, playing some of the tanks. We're going to be doing that in the near future with several tanks, premium and non-premium. And I think the next tank up the list will probably be the Super Pershing, because this tank has quite a story to tell. And at the same time, I think it's still a vehicle that works in the game, and quite a few players still play it. But there has been some change that has been coming around, and it has to do with this little bad boy, the Iron Army, which basically kind of took away the position of the Super Pershing. But before we do that, well, it's still going to be a couple of days before I'm going to be able to do that video. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Until then, have a good one.